That is because the script that made the characters move, we're actually going to be using a version of that today. So does everybody have the source files downloaded and Unity open, or about to be open? Because if not, this is the time.
You open it as a project?
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So right now, everybody just get Unity open, and then I need to do the same. So I'm on the same page as you guys. How many people are on Macs out of curiosity? Okay, it's just a little, yeah. All right, cool. So I'll give you guys a little version of both. So this is probably the view you'll get right now if you're opening Unity for the first time. I have projects listed. You guys won't probably. Let's see. How many people here have used Unity before? Okay, we got 2. All right, so I'm going to treat pretty much everyone as this is the first time you're using it. For the 2 that have used it before, just kind of follow along. So let's everyone go to New Project. There's a new button right here. So with that, and it'll give you your path. I have a folder called Unity Games where I have all my games. You guys can make a folder right now if you want, or just choose any folder where you want to store your games you're making. So I'll give you guys a second to do that. And then for project name, we're going to call this one Stealth Demo, and that's the name of the package file as well that we're going to be importing. So I already have a game called Stealth Demo, so I'm just going to change the name a little bit, and then once you guys have that, just kind of look up so I know where everyone's at. Yeah? Okay, good. Mom McDaniel. All right, so then just hit Create Project. Oh, whoops. I already have it. All right, now you'll see it's going to start thinking. And it should open up like this. Does everybody have this view now? Okay, awesome, sweet. So now what we're going to do, does everyone have those project files downloaded, those source files? Good. All right, awesome. So what we're going to do now is take the source files and drag them into the Unity editor. So I'm just going to click this and drag it in there. And you can see now it's decompressing the package, and it's going to start loading all the stuff into there. So now it's going to have a list of all the assets you want to include, and we're going to include all of these because these all are the project files that I've put together for you guys for this game. So click Import, and you'll see it's going to start importing all of it into your assets folder here. Now, anytime you're making a game, every asset needs to be inside the asset folder, or it's not going to work correctly. And Unity is really particular about when you move files around or you change the names of them. So once you import an asset, make an asset, whatever, do not move its location and don't rename it because it's going to freak everything out, and then your scene might not even open up because it gets weird like that. And so it's going to take a second to import all these because there's a bunch of characters. So let's just imagine we're all trying to think of a game idea right now. This is what I did with this one. So I was feeling a Call of Duty vibe. I was playing COD 4, just reminiscing about that moment, right? So I thought to do, what kind of thing am I going to make? So you have to kind of visualize in your head as the first step what you're going to make. You have to think of your idea. So I pictured kind of a forest, a big open map, and some soldiers walking around, and you were kind of sneaking by them in a stealth sort of way. So once you got an idea of what you're going to make, you kind of start building the map. You create a terrain, you kind of shape it, and then you start designing your art assets in what's called Maya. We're not going to be using Maya today, but it's the program I use that has a great pipeline with Unity, and it's a 3D modeling program. So since Unity 3D is just that, it's 3D. It's 3D environments and 3D design. So you create each asset, which is a 3D model, and you design it sort of in the same way you would, a piece of clay. You kind of mold it, and you form it, and then once you get something you're happy with, you draw the textures to it. So you can use Photoshop for that, or Illustrator, or any of those kinds of programs. And once you get the textures you're happy with and the model, you can export them straight to Unity. And this is why it's taken a while, because these are all image files that correspond to the 3D content you've created. So each 3D art asset has textures that are associated with it. And Unity takes all that information, it puts it into the engine, and it lets you use it for the game. So, is everybody kind of around this point with the import? Yeah? Okay, great. So while this is working, I don't know how much more it'll take, but let me show you Maya briefly to give you an idea of kind of what you use to do 3D models. And again, Unity and Maya are separate programs, but they work together. This is the 3D spacer Maya, and I want to open up one of the models that I actually used for this game to show you guys. You can see it's importing it. So this is the wireframe of a 3D model that's going to be one of our characters in the game. And each one of these things here, these blue things, they actually correspond to a joint for the character. So when you render out an animation for a character, it uses joints that are actually compiled into game objects inside of Unity. So each time you animate a character, what you're doing is you're actually creating what's called keyframes for each joint. And those keyframes are pretty much just code. They're saying, I want to move this vector position to this vector position over X amount of time. So Unity takes this information, let's say if I rotate this here, I bend his arm, right? And let's say I move that. How's the import going, by the way? I don't want to talk to you. Okay, cool. Let's say I move that, I make this 30 frames. My keyboard's being weird. But you can see that the arm's bending, and that pretty much would go straight into Unity if I wanted it to. Because what I would do is I would make this an anim file, and then every time I want to reference it, I would just drag it onto this object in Unity, and the character would bend his arm whenever I tell it to in the code. So that's kind of how you would reference an animation. Obviously, this is the animation you'd use. Let's say you'd be running or walking. Well, I already had a walking animation you guys will be using today. But I'm going to show you how to reference that in code in Unity. It's actually quite simple. But as you can see here, there's no coding required because the 3D modeling software actually provides the code Unity is going to use. So animations are code, but they're not really code you have to write. It's more of a sense of design, actually. So now let's go back to Unity and see where this is at. It finished for me. Is anyone still having an import? Or are you guys all imported? Yeah? Okay, most people are imported. So what we're going to do now is we're going to click on main scene. With this icon here, that's a Unity scene icon. So that compiles all the assets into one scene. Does everyone have this view now with the objects listed? Okay, so now what we're going to do, you might say, well, why is there just a bunch of gray squares? That's because we're actually underneath our terrain right now that I've set up for you guys. So everyone click on soldier, or any game object. We'll probably click on the soldier, that's what I want to do, and then press F. And you'll see, if you move up a little bit, there's the soldier we just saw in Maya, but it's on the terrain. Does everybody see that? Does everybody see that? I'll give you guys 3 seconds in case people catch up. Yeah?
You make that wireframe yourself?
So this wireframe, I used part of it from the internet, and the rest of it I did the textures of, and I kind of brought together. And I did the rigging actually myself. Okay, so if everyone has this view, what we're going to do is hold down Alt, and you'll see this eye icon, and then hold down the mouse, and you can kind of rotate. And if you left click, or if you're on a map, you can just go like this. You can move the trackpad forward. And you can see you're zooming out, and there's a full terrain right there for you guys to work on. So this terrain is kind of basic right now. It doesn't have a lot of formations or or there's a little bit of hills, but you know, it's a little basic and not really what I would think of for a good first-person shooter game. So what we're gonna do instead is everyone click on the terrain, which is right there, and then we're gonna go to this second one, which is the picture of the mountain and the 2 arrows. That's the terrain height tool. And we're pretty much gonna paint the terrain in a way where we wanna shape it, kind of form it, right? So grab one of these brushes here. I like to use this one. This is more for like a little Rocky Mountain kind of thing. And anytime you click, it's gonna shape the terrain. It's gonna raise it a little bit. See that? And the longer you hold it down, the higher it goes. And if you hold shift, then it goes lower. So you can lower it by holding shift and raise it by clicking. Actually, that's the wrong tool. Hold on. That's paint height. My bad. You're gonna use the first one. Sorry about that. So the first one, you click and it goes up. So I'm gonna use that first button, kind of shape your terrain. And you gotta want to visualize in your head what you want the terrain to kind of look like, right? If you want it to be really mountainous, if you want it to be kind of mountainous. Keep it kind of flat in the middle because the program I wrote for this character movement is gonna rely on the terrain being flat in the center of the map. So kind of on the edges, you can shape it a little bit. So I'll give you guys like a minute or two, if you want, to kind of shape your terrain using those tools. Shift and click to lower, and then click to raise, using the first icon, which is the mountain with the arrow pointing up. And another tool you guys can use too is the one with the water droplet, and that smooths out the terrain. So it actually, try and get a little closer so you guys can see a little better. That actually evens out most of those things. And obviously changing your opacity is going to make the effects more dramatic, whether you're smoothing it out or raising it or lowering it. So when you guys feel like you're pretty satisfied with your basic terrain, let me know. And if you want to add more textures too, let me see if I can include more of these in here. Yeah, there's a couple more. So if you guys go to ground textures, the ground textures folder, which is right here in assets, you'll see there's one more texture I haven't added for you guys to add. It's called dead leaves. And so when you go to terrain, you're going to want to hit, if you want to add that texture, you go to edit textures, add texture. You'll see this dialog box come up. And all you got to do is drag this to texture and click add. And you'll see it appear here on your palette. So it's kind of like a paintbrush. If you're a painter and you have a palette of paints and you can choose each one and sort of draw it onto the grid. So I click this one here and I can use my brush and start filling it in on the terrain with the texture that I want to use. And again, I have different options if I want to use that, or I want to go back and fill more of this texture in. And over time, this is how designers do it. You kind of just keep experimenting with what works and what kind of fits the image in your head you're trying to create in 3D space. So does everyone kind of have a terrain they're satisfied with right now, or overall? Or are you guys still working?
How do you zoom out?
So you zoom out, Ray, you want to on a map? Yeah, so all you do is you take your 2 fingers of the trackpad and push it forward.
Oh, okay.
And you'll zoom out. Yeah.
And I do it down on the map?
So you're going to want to use the, I think for PC it's right click plus Alt, and you're going to press that.
That's it.
Yeah, great. Okay, so I'll give you guys maybe another minute to mess around with the terrain using the tools I just described. Meantime, I'm trying to hold this plateaus. Everything would be kind of flat on the top, whereas the rest of the terrain would be down the bottom. If it takes too long. Do you have some filters around it? They wouldn't there, no. Okay, so does everyone have a terrain they're feeling good about? If not, we can change it in a second. I kind of want to move on to the trees now, if you guys are good. Okay, great. So it's tree time, which is exciting. So everyone, click on the trees button right here. Am I going too fast? Just too slow for everyone too? Everyone kind of good? All right. So if you click on the trees, and you go to Edit Trees, Add Tree. Similar to this terrain, we're going to get an option to add a tree in a way we would a texture where we did with the last of the Dead Leaves texture. So the trees for this, you click on the button right here, the bullet next to non-game object, and it's going to open up a list of game objects you can assign to tree. Now we don't want to assign something that isn't configured as a tree, because let's say I assigned a house as a tree, and I thought, oh, I'll just paint 1,000,000 houses on the map. The problem with that is they're not going to come with collision, even if you assign collision in the inspector. So the tree is specifically configured to be a tree in the tree editor. So only use pre-configured trees as your trees. And the one I like, the other ones I think are kind of shitty. So I'm thinking of using this one, which is the Conifer desktop. And since this is a desktop game, this works better. The difference between a desktop and mobile asset is a mobile asset is more what's called low poly, which means it has more jagged edges and it's rendered at it's rendered to be more low resolution, whereas a more high resolution object is configured to be a desktop or a console asset. So when you click on that, you just gotta click Add. And then there it is, your tree is in your window. Now, you might think there's no trees on the map, but that's because I'm not going to paint them. In fact, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do mass place trees. So you could paint them, but this is an easier way because it actually evenly spaces it throughout the map. So click mass place trees. And we're not going to do that many trees because then every 10 seconds you're going to bump into a tree and it's going to be kind of unfortunate. So we're going to do 500 instead. So we're going to type 500 in, or you can use a lower value if you'd rather. Is everyone keeping up okay?
Wait, how do you get to the trees?
Okay, sure. So for the trees, you click on the tree button, which is here. It's next to the, So you click on the tree button, and then you click on the edit trees, and then you click add tree. And then when you go to this menu, you click the bullet next to the non-game object. You click on the Conifer desktop tree, and then click Add. And then this brings us to this, and we're going to mass place trees. We're going to add this tree at a mass scale, pretty much. So, do most people have this window up now? Okay. You guys can say yes too. You don't have to be quiet. That makes it easier. Okay. So click place, and you'll notice a little bit of lag, and there's all your trees. 500 trees that are randomly spread out throughout the map, and they all have the exact terrain height that they're supposed to have, which is kind of nice. So if you zoom in using Alt plus click, or no, not click. I don't remember what it is on PC, but I think it's a click drag or it's a right click. You use Alt, that much I know. And you use Alt, and you can kind of move with the trackpad. And you can see, here's all your trees. Yeah, Alt click is to rotate. So if you want to rotate your view around in the scene view, that's called the scene view, by the way. The inspector view's on the right panel. The scene view's in the middle. And then your game and animation editor should be right here. So if you click game, that's what your game view is going to look like. And because I already pre-assigned a character that's your first person camera, that's what this is going to show when it renders out the game. Yeah?
I'm having trouble placing trees all over the terrain and not just in the circle.
So you don't want to paint the trees. What you want to do is you want to mass place them. Did everyone find the mass place option? I hope I didn't go through that too fast. Yeah? Okay, good. Okay, so once we have the trees placed, we're going to move on to the next step. So now that the terrain's kind of set, we're gonna start moving on to the coding portion of this in a minute if everyone's ready. I'll give you guys another couple seconds. Then we're gonna move on to coding. Now, who here has taken a coding class before or knows something about coding? Great, that makes it so much easier. All right, so you guys all know what basic coding is like. How many people have taken Java? Great, cool. So what we're going to be using is a hybrid between Java and Python. It's called JavaScript. And it's not the JavaScript used for web either. It's a specific version Unity has made called Unity JavaScript. So, and that's what I write my scripts in usually. So, in case you guys are curious what it looks like in the actual game view, everyone click the play button right here so we can check out our trees. This is kind of cool. Now, you can use the arrow keys to move around, just like in a real game, right? And here is the soldier we took a look at in mine. Now you're thinking, why is he walking in place? Well, he's on a treadmill, but you just can't see it now. He's actually, he hasn't been coded yet to do his full random movements. Right now, he's kind of just walking in place. He'll change direction so I can move around. That's because we haven't actually coded yet his movements. And that's what we're going to do right now. Yeah?
I can't play it because it's not there's a lot of exceptions.
Okay. So if you can't play it, it won't let you play it if there's errors. So. Great. So I know it's really fun to walk around in a map where there's nothing going on, but if you guys want to make stuff happen, we're going to do some coding now. So to get out of the play view, just hit play again. Don't worry, you guys will get to play later, I promise. You can jump off the map and all that fun stuff. So getting out of play, you just have to tap the play button again. Although if you're stuck in the view and you're like, where the hell is my mouse? Hit escape and then click the play button, because your mouse will show up after you hit escape. Is everyone out of play view? Okay. So now we're going to start moving on to coding. So, and what it does is it finds a random location on the map to move to, and it starts playing the animation I specify, which is the anim name variable string. And from there, we pick that destination we want to move to in Wander, as we call Wander. And then we start moving. And we have a random delay where we want to move. And we wait for this random amount of time using yield wait for seconds, which you'll use a lot if you guys are ever doing anything in games, pretty much. And you'll start playing the second animation name, which is the idle animation. There's two animations in the game object. And these are just print statements. It'll toggle this Boolean waiting to false, which means, I don't remember how I set that up. I think it's the fixed update function, yeah, that has to do with waiting. So that'll call fixed update. And then you'll start playing the other animation again, and you'll just keep going forever, because you don't need to use loops as much in Unity, because update is a loop. Update means every frame I get, I'm going to call this function. So every single frame, if your game's running at 50 frames a second, this function gets called 50 times in 1 second. It corresponds with your frame rate. So if I put something in function update, you're going to see, and I put a print statement, you're going to see in the debug log it's called like thousands and thousands and thousands of times without using any loops whatsoever. So if you don't want to use a loop, just use function update and fixed update. They both do, fixed update, all that has to do with is physics collisions. It makes them more accurate, pretty much. Somebody have a hand up? Yeah.
Can you zoom in the text a little bit?
Sure. Is that better?
Yeah.
So yeah, you can see here, we use move towards, all that stuff. So it's kind of boring to look at code I already wrote and try and decipher it though, so let's write our own code. So I got this out of the way because we don't have a lot of time, but normally I would just write this for you guys in front of you. But I'm kind of like El Sheik in 112 in that I don't like coding a lot. Right? So we're going to go now to, the way I wanted to do this game when I thought of it is I thought, you know, let's say you're stranded in this map and there's a billion soldiers everywhere. Not a billion, but I could make it a billion if I wanted to, right? And there's a ton of soldiers everywhere. So there's only one guy right now, and he's not very threatening. I mean, he has an AK, so that's not nice, and also I don't have a gun, so that's not very convenient. But let's say instead there's an army, and I'm trapped in the middle of like an army base. But I don't want to drag an army of soldiers to the map one by one, because it's going to take forever. And also I'd have to make sure the heights are correct, it lines up with the terrain. So instead, we're just going to code it. So everybody go now to main camera, and you'll see, what's this thing here? It says spawn soldiers. So that's the script we're going to write. I've pre-assigned it, but if I hadn't assigned it, all I would do is I would create a script here, and then I would drag it here. Unity likes click and drag because it's easy to use, and you'll notice click and drag is what you'll be doing a lot of if you use Unity. So let's go ahead and open up that script. So click on the gear again, and click Edit Script at the bottom. And it's going to open up a new script. I have one comment that says this is the script that spawns enemy soldiers. But now let's actually write this. So let's think of the first thing we're going to want to do is create a variable to store the soldier, right? So we use data types in Unity, so start typing var for a variable. And we want to call him soldier. But we want to denote the type. And how you do that in Unity, unlike any other language I've really worked in, is use a colon, and then you use game object. Capital game, capital object, and semicolon. So as you can see, it's kind of a really mix of like Python and Java. At least that's what I always describe it as. And game object's a type you're using all the time, because pretty much most things are game objects in Unity. So we're going to create another variable now that will set the minimum number of soldiers we want, which will be 0. So let's do var min soldiers, or sorry, num soldiers. And not the minimum, we're going to want to set the current number. Num soldiers, it's an int type, equals 0. Is everyone following along? I'll make it bigger. Does that help? Okay. Now we want to set the maximum number of soldiers, and this can be changed later. This is not permanent. We can change it in the inspector, whatever we want. So let's start with 100 first. Max soldiers in equals 100. And again, this can all be changed later. You know, if we want to resize it depending on what our computer can handle, we can. So now that function update I was just talking about, we're going to use it. So function update, which will update every frame depending on the frame rate of your game. And we use it kind of like we would in Java, except we call it function, not void or whatever. You know, it's just Unity only has one type of function. It's just called function, kind of like in Python. So we're going to do if num soldiers is less than the max soldiers, right? We want to start spawning. But let's not use a loop because games don't do so well with certain loops with a lot of information that has to do with 3D geometry. It really just, Unity doesn't like that. So instead, we're going to do a coroutine, which a coroutine pretty much runs over and over and over again. But different to the way it does in function update is a coroutine is another function that can support yielding and other methods that you might want to use. Because update won't let you yield. You can't ever stop it because it runs on your frame rate. So if you wanted to yield for 5 seconds, it has no sense of time. It runs in frames, not seconds. But functions outside of update, they run in seconds. They know what seconds are. So we don't want to run all the soldiers at once because it could crash the program. We want to wait a fraction of a second in between each spawn so that it doesn't crash. So we're going to do start coroutine, spawn objects, or soldiers, whatever you want to call it. And for this function, we don't need to wait to start it. We're just going to start right away, so just put 0 for that. And then we don't want this to go on for all of eternity, so we do num soldiers plus plus, so that the if statement eventually returns false. Everyone following okay so far? I'll give you guys a second to catch up. Yeah?
What does start show routine exactly do?
So it calls a function repeatedly, like a routine kind of. You know, like you think of a normal routine. I wake up in the morning, I eat, I go to sleep, right? It does that over and over again, right? But it's a coroutine, so it's not going to get out of this function. It's not going to get out of update. It's going to call it on the side. It's going to say, hey, wake up, go to bed. Wake up, eat, go to sleep. I hope you don't wake up and then go right back to bed, right? So it's going to do that, but it's going to stay focused on its task. It's going to keep updating, but it's going to say, hey, do that. And it'll start doing that, but it'll run in its own update, kind of, but in an update that understands what time it is. Okay, so once we have that, we want to know when to stop this. When should I stop routining? Because if you tell someone to start a routine, they're never going to stop until you say stop, right? So we want to tell it stop. So we're going to say if num soldiers equals max soldiers, we're going to stop coroutine. Spawn objects. Okay, so that's our update function. And now we need to create the spawn objects function. By the way, make sure you check out your braces, because unlike in Java, you don't need braces for anything other than functions. So we're going to do function spawn objects now. And let's start by grabbing a position on our grid. And now a 3D space is defined as a vector 3. So that's the data type we're going to use. So we're going to do var position equals vector 3, because that's the type we're using. But it's not, actually, the thing with vector 3, we're not defining it as that type. Well, we are, but we're also, vector 3 is what follows in the coordinates we're giving it to. So vector 3 is a type, but it's also a set of coordinates. So the reason it's 3 and not 2 is because it's x, y, and z, which are the 3 coordinate planes you use in 3D space. If this was a 2D game, we would use vector 2, because we only need x and y. We don't need depth, right? So our vector 3 coordinates, and this is, I predetermined these coordinates based on the map size I generated for you guys. We're all using the same map, so 166 is the min x value, and 240 is the max x value. Now let me show you in Unity the x value. Oh, that's the wrong Unity. The min x value. Yeah, I know. Oh boy. Is right here on our little gizmo there with the red. Red is x. So our min x is here, right here by these trees, right? We don't want to spawn them in the hills, so we're going to spawn them starting right here. Now we want to go all the way to over here, which is 240 roughly. And the way I got those positions is you see here how we have the main camera, x, 289, y, whatever that is. That's what you do if you're trying to figure out where something is. Well, at least that's what I do. I just grab a game object, throw it on the grid, find out what coordinates it's at. If I want to start right here, I grab those coordinates. And I throw it in the script here. So that's the random range we're going to use for that. You have to write, we want to do it within that range. So type random.range and enclose that in parentheses. Then we're going to do the y coordinates, which is random.range 214. I don't know why I used, oh right, yes, 0.09. Now the reason this isn't at 0, 0 is because, well, I put the terrain at the wrong height by accident, and yeah, so normally this would be at 0y, but our terrain happens to be floating 200 feet above the ground. you know, maybe it's one of those really high above sea level mountainous places in Call of Duty somewhere. So we're going to do that, and then we're not going to go, maybe go a little higher to account for some terrain variation. So type in 215 to give it a range of about 1, right? Just for some bumps in the terrain we may have. Yeah.
Why not just code the terrain into just a spot above the terrain?
Yeah, so you can use that, but for, I want to keep this a little more basic, so we're just going to use this for the terrain because we want the middle of the map to be kind of flat. I didn't want to go through terrain variation coding right now, but yeah, you could do that, that's true. I used that in one of my other games. So then we're going to go to the Z, random.range, and the Z dimensions happen to be 200 to 400. That's the range for the Z. And make sure you have that other parentheses and then close it with a semicolon. So that's our position, right? Now we need to create a clone, because every game object we have is going to be cloned. We're going to clone them like 100 times, so it's a clone army of terrorists, pretty much. That kind of sucks. So go to var clone, and the type game object. By the way, you don't have to define the types, but it makes it a little faster. Because if Unity has to search for the data type, it might take up a little extra memory. So, and we're going to assign that to be an instantiation, so type instantiate, of that prefabricated game object. These are all a bunch of fancy words, but all they mean is you've already made the game object, so you want to duplicate it. That's all it really means. So, I'm going to type in soldier, which is defined right up there. And we want to put him at position, which is random, but we know we're going to do that. And type in quaternion identity. And what that means, quaternions are like, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but those just have to do with rotation. So if I want to assign a specific one of those, I would use .Euler or whatever. I don't know where they get these names from, but it's probably from somewhere. That's the guys in Unity. I didn't think of these names. And then, yeah, so now the rotation, we don't want them all to be facing the same way. So let's, yeah.
Did you spell identity wrong?
I did, thank you. I did. Wow, that would have been annoying. Thank you. Yeah, make sure you spell stuff right. That's always good. So I want to make his transform dot rotation dot y, which means, you know, if this is 0 for me and I want to be 90, I'd be this way. If I want to be 180, you know, I want to be minus 90, I'd be this way. And if I want to be, you know, 180, I'd be this way, right? So that's kind of how you would do the y rotation. So let's do a random range of 0 to 360. So it'll be somewhere in between there for each guy. And go ahead and save that, so we're done. Say everyone finished coding that? Okay, cool. So now we're going to go back to Unity, and it's going to think. All right, it gave me an error. I forgot a few things. Give me a second. Right. Okay. I think I forgot it. Yeah, I forgot a bracket. Okay. And I forgot the semicolon somewhere. There we go. Okay. Yeah, make sure you close your bracket. Yeah.
Is the second if statement supposed to be in the first one? Because you close all the curly braces like together. Of the update function.
You're right. I did. Thank you.
Right, okay.
Sorry, guys. I'm trying to code and talk at the same time, so I'm going to miss a couple things. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so make sure you move that curly brace. He's right. That was a good catch. Thanks. Because otherwise, it's not going to really do what we want it to do. So now you'll see Spawn Soldiers has a game object and our dimensions we defined, but we have to assign to Spawn Soldiers the type of the game object specifically we want to use. So let's drag Soldier 2 to just type in soldier 2 in the project pane, which is the bottom there. Because we don't want to drag the game object, we want to grab the original game object, not the instance of it. So drag soldier 2, the blue box, into soldier. And now we're going to play it and see what happens. Now if I look around, whoa, look at all those people. Where did they come from? So I got a lot of people hanging out now, and they're all showing up with their AKs. I'm surprised they haven't killed me yet. That guy's walking into a tree. Yeah.
Are they all walking in the same direction?
Well, they're not, because you see that guy's walking this way, that guy's walking this way, other guy's walking that way. They're all kind of walking in different directions. Right. Okay, so once we have that done, you can go ahead and click the play and exit out of that. We're going to move on to the next script now.
We're
So-
creating compilers.
Okay, yeah, with the code. Script next. So the way this game works is you're going to be wandering around in this enemy camp, and you want to pick up blueprints to their secret base. So you're going to be kind of like doing Mario style, collecting while there's like bad guys. Yeah. All right. So this is a blueprint that I made in Photoshop, I think, or something. It's just a PNG, and I saved it, and I made it a game object. So what that means is I can, manipulate it in Unity and make it like a piece of paper, like would be in the game. So we're going to go ahead and click on Blueprint, which is the blue. It's funny enough, it's actually blue, right? And then click on the gear and choose Edit Script at the bottom for Blueprint Script. It's going to open up a new window, and what do you know? Function start, function update. Those are your two default functions you get. So this is the script that's going to let us actually pick up the blueprints that are on the ground. So to do that, first grab this. This is a little easier than the last one, luckily. So we're going to start with our player. So var player, our type, game object, just like before with the soldier. So this time it's player. Next line is var canvas. You're probably thinking, I don't want to paint something, why do I have a canvas? Well, canvas is what Unity uses to define UI elements. So every UI element in Unity has to be attached to a canvas. So the canvas is what stores buttons, images, updates UI, all that kind of stuff. So anything that looks like a menu and it's in the game, that goes under canvas. So it's going to be defined as a game object, and that's the game object we're going to reference. Or we're going to reference the canvas component on the game object. So you'll see in a second. So the thing is, we're creating this at runtime, so it's not going to really be able to assign it beforehand, right? We can't do what we did with the soldier where we clicked and dragged it because it was executing before the game started. This is executing during the game, right? A player runs up to a blueprint, that's the moment where you want to pick it up. You don't want to pick it up in the beginning, right? So you have to actually at runtime tell the engine where the game object is, right? So to do that, we're going to reassign player. We're going to go to player equals game object dot find, open parentheses, FPS controller, because that's the name of the game object as it's defined in the scene view. And our next line, we're going to assign the canvas. So we're going to go to canvas equals, same thing, game object dot find, uppercase C, canvas, and those are the two objects we're going to be manipulating in the script, so it's a little more simple. But this is the important part in update. So every frame, we're going to check, am I near blueprint? Can I pick it up? Am I near blueprint? Can I pick it up? Unity's going to ask that question, 50 times per second, every single time the frame rate boost. So when a player gets within range, it's going to check this condition over and over again. And finally, the condition will be satisfied if you're in range of the blueprint, right? So to do that, we're going to check our vector 3 coordinates. We're going to check if our vector position is within the range of the vector positioning of the blueprint. So we're going to do the if vector 3 dot distance, open parenthesis, transform dot position, comma, player dot transform dot position. Make sure you check your spelling because these are strange words and I always misspell them. Close. Less than, I say 3 because 3 in Unity is like the magic number. Like anytime something's within 3, it's like the way the camera can actually see it and it looks like you're actually right in front of it, like in real life. Especially with Oculus Rift, if you're doing an Oculus Rift game in Unity and you come within 3 of something, you feel like your arms can pick it up. So we're going to do open canvas dot send message. Send message is capitalized. Open. Add 1 point. So just like that. And then we're going to destroy it because we don't want the blueprint anymore. It picks up, we put it in our pocket. So destroy game object. But notice I did capitalize the G in game object. That's because it's not a data type, it's an actual game object. I'm going to close that, and I'm going to close update, and we're done. So save it. And we're going to assign this, and then we'll have one more script to write. And then we'll have a finished game, believe it or not. So this is saving. And hopefully there won't be any compiler errors. I'm sure, hopefully we'll have less compile errors than last time, okay? I didn't have any because everyone else had any. Wow, really? Okay, awesome. So you'll see it says non-game object here, and wow, my that got really loud. And you might think, well, I need to assign something, but you actually don't because we are assigning it in the code. We're not assigning it ahead of time. So you can actually leave that blank, and Unity isn't going to give you an error, which is kind of nice. So that's not going to do anything yet because it means we can only pick up one blueprint. So if just to confirm my script works, go ahead and hit play. And while this mean guy is running at us, we're going to pick up the blueprint that's in the game once I can find it. You guys can keep looking for it while I'm looking for it. It was underneath the terrain, my bad. So I'm moving, bam, I got it. I picked up the blueprint. But what's that error right there? It says it has no receiver because I haven't written the function add 1 point yet. So we need to do that now. And now, once I do that, this canvas here is going to actually have a number that tells me I picked up one blueprint. And it's going to do that each time. It's going to add 1. So go ahead and unplay what you played. And we're going to fix that little error we have that about the send message issue. So to do that, we're going to go to, where did I put that? Hold on. Sorry, 1 second. I have to remember where I put this. Oh, right. It's on Canvas. So click Canvas, and you'll see you have a script called add. This will be our last script. So click on the gear, click Edit Script. So this adds 1 point to the blueprint counter, which is the canvas that's attached to the camera. So to do this, we're going to start off with the new variable. So the first thing we want to reference is our score text, we're gonna update that, so we're gonna type in var score text. And the type is actually a UI text, so we're gonna do capital U, capital I, dot, text, with capital T. And now we need to update the score, which is gonna be an integer, so var score int equals 0, we're gonna initialize it at 0. Once we have that, we're gonna add a point, we're gonna write that function we had. So this is a lot simpler than what we had before. It's just simply function, add 1 point, but make sure you have the spelling correct, because if you don't, Unity's gonna give you an error saying that function still doesn't exist. And at 1 point, all we're gonna do, we're gonna update score, we're gonna do score plus plus, and then we're gonna update the score text, which is the UI text. So score text, dot text. And the reason we need dot text is we're accessing the text component on the UI object. And we're gonna assign score, but we can't assign an integer to a string, so we're gonna do dot toString. And we're gonna go ahead and save that. Once that compiles, we're gonna run it, and we're gonna be able to pick up that object. So I lied, there's one more script, but we're gonna just be modifying a couple things, so it's not a big job actually. So I'm gonna run that, and I'm gonna test the blueprint again. There it is. Oh, right, I forgot to assign the game objects, which is something you guys should make sure you also don't do. The C text is none right now, so to fix that, we need to assign it to text, so click on debullet, and you get this window. Does everyone have this window? Who's still with me? Okay, cool. We click on text. Whoops, doesn't like it. And now when we run it, now we'll see the change. I had an older version of this, and when you got near the soldier, it looked like he was trying to teabag you, so I got rid of that script. And there we go, 1 point. So now we need to do that for when we have a lot of blueprints, because one blueprint and you pick it up and the game's over is a really boring game, right? So we're gonna make it a little more exciting by creating a bunch of blueprints the same way we created a bunch of soldiers. So to do that, we're gonna need to go back to create another script. And this one, what I'm going to do is actually, we're actually just going to duplicate the soldier script and edit that. So everybody search for the script you had before. It's called, remember, spawn soldiers. And, oh, you guys already have spawn blueprints. Never mind. So but to do that, we're just going to open up. Does everyone still have spawn soldiers open in there on the develop here? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. All we're going to do is just copy this, select it all and copy it with Control Z or Command Z or whatever. Go to spawn blueprints, double click, click here, paste, and I know the names don't match quite, but to save time, we're just going to actually literally use the same script we already wrote. But we're going to change the value for the number. So where it says 100, we're going to drop that down to about 40. And save it as spawn blueprints. You'll see it's compiling. Now I'm going to show you guys how to actually assign the script in the inspector, and to do that, all you have to do is main camera again. We have 4. Click spawn blueprints, hold down the mouse, drag it right underneath the add component, release, and it's right underneath it. Now, we don't want to assign a soldier to the soldier field, even though that's counterintuitive. We're going to actually assign a blueprint. So, I'm just going to type in blueprint right here. We'll see we have a blueprint right there where my mouse is. That's the one we want. So drag it to soldier, and we're going to run it, and suddenly we'll have a bunch of blueprints, hopefully. Oh, that was the wrong game object, my bad. That's why they're all in the air. Oh. Well, that's unfortunate. I actually double assigned it. So if you guys have it on main camera, just click the gear again and click remove component, because I actually already have it assigned. Apparently. We're going to go to the thing that just says game object, and that's where we're going to assign the blueprint. So. And it's actually not blueprint all the way, it's blue_print. That's what we want, not the one I had before. So click that one. And now we're gonna run this, and now they're gonna show up. And there they are. Now I can run at them, and I'm gonna steal all the blueprints to this base. We got 1, 2, 3, and you guys get the idea. It just kind of keeps going on for a while. Again, it's a very basic game that doesn't have a lot of pieces yet. I know he just tried to teabag me again. They keep doing that. It's funny. I kind of left the code in, I think, just to entertain myself with that. But you know, this is the makings of a really basic game. You can add on it a lot. You know, you can take what you have here and add sound effects. You can add ambient sound. You can change the sky. You can do a lot more advanced features with this. And you know, you could do a script where when you run into the soldier, it kills you. You could do a lot of stuff like that. But unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time for this workshop, so I thought, what could I do in an hour and a half? I could show you guys what Unity's all about in a 3D environment, in a console-style game. So I hope you guys had a good time learning Unity. Thanks. Appreciate you guys coming out, and I'll stick around for a little while after if you guys want to chat on anything Unity related or whatever. Thanks. Oh, so I'm going to post the finished project files to this on Facebook. So if you guys want to download the completed project of this in case you have an issue, you can do so. Yeah.